Guys, it's your boy. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about a new HBO Max original movie. I feel like of all of the movies that have come out this weekend, this one has been like buried. I haven't seen anybody talk about this movie yet, but Turtles All the Way Down, based off of the famous John Green book. Let's talk about it.
Modded movie review.
Okay, so right off the bat, if you like me, haven't seen a whole lot about this movie, but we're like, oh my god, this is based off of a book. Fault in Our Stars is a pretty great movie, and John Green helped produce this movie and helped with the script, or at least like kind of like supervised and looked over the people who were working on the script for this movie. I believe he might have been the writer. I'm gonna be totally honest, I don't fully know what I'm talking about right now, but I know he definitely had part in it. This movie, pretty damn good. And like I said, I haven't seen anybody talk about it, so I really wanted to. So I'm gonna fully dive into this. I'm gonna issue a spoiler warning. This is based off of a book that's been out for a while, but it could still be spoiled. So if you haven't seen the movie, maybe go check it out and come back and watch this video later. But that being said, we're gonna dive right into this. Alrighty, so the first thing I want to talk about is the cast here. I think that this cast is relatively young, and for a lot of these people, these are some of their like first like big movie roles. The lead actress, however, she's about to be a huge superstar, and I think that she's incredibly talented and she has a lot of potential. It's Isabela Merced. If you saw her a picture in the poster or whatever, and you're like, oh my god, she looks kind of familiar. Why may I recognize her? She was just in one of the greatest movies of all time back in February, Madame Web, where she played Anya Corazon. Yeah, that's definitely a great great way to kind of like, you know, gauge how talented of an actress she is. No, it's not. That movie was terrible. But she was so good in this. I am incredibly excited to kind of see like the future of her career, because she's been cast as Hawkgirl for James Gunn's DCU, and he is a huge fan of like the comics runs where the Justice League includes Hawkgirl as like one of the most prominent members of it. So I'm incredibly excited to see her potentially have a huge role in the DCU, and especially after the disappointment that was Madame Web. I think that she's insanely talented, and she's going to be absolutely fantastic as one of the like leaders of the Justice League in that world. But to get back on topic, her performance in this movie is incredibly good. This main character is somebody who deals with a lot of anxiety. They overthink literally everything, and they get like, I think the way that they describe it in the movie is she gets like lost in her own head, and she basically starts like spiraling. Her thoughts just like spiral out of control. It kind of for moments kind of feels like it's slightly DID. It's not really. DID, for people who don't know, is dissociative identity disorder, and it's typically known as like multiple personalities. Like the movie Split, the show Moon Knight, if you are familiar with, you know, superhero stuff. But there are parts in this where like she is like experiencing something or something's going on, and like it feels like there is another like version of herself in her brain who is trying to like force her to do things that she typically wouldn't do, and it makes it really hard for her to live her day-to-day life, and she deals with a lot of struggles with said anxiety and with like I said, that thing in her brain that's literally like, you have to do this thing right now. If you don't do this thing right now, you're literally going to die. You have to go to the bathroom, you have to do this, you have to I'm not going to say exactly what it is, because there are some moments later in the movie where it becomes a really big deal, and it is very shocking, and it's a little scary. I'm not going to lie. There are definitely parts of this where like you'll feel uneasy. But what's it called? Isabela Merced just absolutely sells this role perfectly. There are a lot of sequences where she's having like panic attacks essentially, and she's having like really bad anxiety. She's crashing, and she just needs to like run to a bathroom and like have like a little breakdown. And almost every single one of these sequences are not, I'm not gonna say like super hard to watch, because like it's still relatively bearable. It's PG-13, so they did a good job of kind of like keeping it to a point where like it's not gonna trigger people too much. But that being said, it is a really good representation of anxiety. I haven't struggled with it as much the last couple of years, but back when I was in high school, I did have a lot of really bad anxiety, and I had like anxiety attacks when I worked sometimes, and this movie portrayed that really well. So I really appreciate that. And something that I really liked about this movie is it's kind of like a young coming-of-age story, and if you are a fan of coming-of-age stories, man, this year has been feeding us so well, because what's it called? The movie Snack Shack that came out, I think it was last month, maybe 2 months ago now. That movie was really good. Brilliant coming-of-age story. It was really fun. I think that Mean Girls, even though that's not really the heart of what the Mean Girls movie is, it is, in a sense, a coming-of-age story, and that one was pretty good. And now we have this. So, like, 3 really solid coming-of-age movies in this year so far, and I'm really enjoying it. I think that they're all doing a really great job of kind of being very definitively different from I said definitively, that's not what I meant to say. They're just being very diverse from each other. They're all being different forms of coming of age stories, but they do a really good job of making you feel kind of like the downfalls of being a teenager and not really sure what you're going to do with your life, and then having a couple of moments where like the light kind of shines through and you're like, okay, I know what's going on, I feel confident in my future and everything's going to be okay. And it is very therapeutic. Like, I am a really big fan of a lot of different genres. I do think that coming of age stories specifically, I know that's not really a genre, but in my mind, it's kind of a genre. Coming of age stories will always be one of my favorite movies to throw on, and this one, really good. It's very similar to movies The Edge of 17 with Haley Steinfeld that came out a couple of years ago. And I haven't seen Are You There Yet? God, It's Me, Margaret, but I imagine it's probably a little similar to that. Obviously a little different because there's more of like a romantic story in this, but very, very good stuff with all of the coming of age stuff. I think that they do a relatively good job of showcasing people who are young and in high school. I will admit there are definitely moments where like their interactions kind of make it seem like they are already like college aged. But that being said, some people get like high school jobs and like they have to deal with a lot of like darker and more adults problems than other people. So I think that they do a good job kind of portraying that well. And the friendship dynamic between the two best friends is absolutely great. And I think that they perfectly portray the introvert, extrovert best friends trope, which I thought was fantastic. Throughout this movie, they have a lot of moments where they kind of go at each other a little bit. Like, there's definitely a lot of arguments and stuff like that, and there's a lot of tension. And the way that they play it off and the way that they actually just like act as best friends feels very organic and very natural. I think that those two actresses have a lot of really good chemistry with each other, which works really well. And speaking of chemistry, to talk about the love story in this movie, I think that they do a really interesting job with introducing the really, really wealthy love interest in this. And he does something that if I ever was to date somebody who's super rich, please give me $50,000. That's, oh my God. So for people who haven't seen the movie and are still here, first of all, I told you to watch it later. I'm kidding. But what happens is she used to be friends with this guy back in some summer camp or something like that. They met over the summer. They had a like kind of like a fling, but they were really just like really close friends. And I think it's like 7 or 8, maybe 10 years go by, and now his family is on the news because his father is like ran away or something like that, and there's now like a reward for $100,000 for anybody who can turn him into like the police or something like that. It felt like kind of like a bounty thing, which was really interesting. But basically the reason why she ends up going back to this guy who she hasn't talked to in like 8 years or whatever is because the best friend is like, oh my God, we really need $100,000. We should do it. And once the guy figures out like, oh, that was their original motives, he gives her, like the main character, $100,000 and is kind of like, because I want to see if you actually love me. And all I gotta say is, if you want to give me $100,000 to see if I actually love you, I think it would work. Honestly, I think that would work really well. But yeah, the way that it starts off like that, and then we actually get to see them kind of like get to know each other a little bit more. They do a lot of like fun little dumb things that like young people do when they're in love, and they make some mistakes, and they have like very like awkward conversations. And I think that the love story in this is really cute and wholesome. Obviously, once again, the main character played by Isabela Merced, is somebody who struggles a lot with anxiety, and one of the big things that she's really anxious about is like bacteria and stuff like that. So she's terrified of kissing somebody and like exchanging bacteria or whatever. So whenever they like start to kiss and stuff like that, it starts to create a lot of problems. She has a lot of panic attacks. Like I mentioned, she goes to the bathroom and kind of has these breakdowns, and it's very, very emotional. And I think that they portray the emotions really well. And I think that the way that they have the guy kind of like trying to be there for her and trying to be supportive and doing whatever he can to kind of like make sure that they're keeping their distance, it's really well done. It kind of reminds me of 5 Feet Apart. But yeah, overall, I had a really good time with this movie. I thought it was great. I think that the ending kind of felt a little rushed, and there were definitely a lot of moments in here. Like, I feel like the first hour and like 20 minutes felt relatively slow for how fast they quickly wrap it up and tie it up with a bow at the end of the movie. Like, I think that the pacing is probably one of the only problems I had with this movie. But that being said, it was still a lot of fun. I had a really good time with it. Overall, if I had to give this movie a rating on a scale of 1 to 100, I'm going to give it a solid 80. Like I said, my main problem with it was the pacing, but I think that all the acting performances are really well done. They have a really decent score. Like, I think that a lot of the soundtrack works well. John Green makes a cameo, and when it happened, I literally audibly gasped. I said gasped. I meant to say gasped. Gasped? Maybe I can't say the word. Okay, my bad. But yeah. Overall, it was a very fun movie. If you have HBO Max, you're already paying for the subscription. You should go ahead and check it out. It's a great time. But that being said, that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and checking it out. I love and appreciate you guys so much for watching. And if you liked it, feel free to like and subscribe. And I will hopefully see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bow. Bow. Bow.
Back at it again, but that's a relevant flow. So smooth, they calling me Mr. Elegant. Like an elephant, I got a long nose. Like a president, I've got a few hoes. Swift with a stutter, I'm smooth like butter. Don't see it coming when I slip undercover. Like a big dog, but I don't bite. I'm still a big broad, I'd win that fight. Come match you and I knock out your lights.